So as most of y'all probably already know, Lady Gaga went on tour last year and then through the beginning of this year with her album Mayhem, and I was not originally going to go to this tour, but I kept seeing all the amazing visuals that she did for this particular tour, and I loved them so much that I knew when she announced an Austin date that I absolutely had to go. And of course, I had to make a costume to go along with it because it wouldn't be me if I didn't. There's just a ton of red in both the costuming and in the set design, so I wanted to do something red, and then the main costume that she wears at the very beginning is like a red coat that I also wanted to draw some inspiration on. So I'm using red velvet, and I already had a pattern in my stash that I'd been wanting to use. So this is the Butterick B4254, and this particular pattern is for what are called stays, which I am not a historical sewing person, so if I get any sort of terminology or anything wrong in this video, I'm super sorry. That's not my normal wheelhouse. So I'll be using the pattern that I just showed y'all with the red velvet to have sort of an homage to Gaga herself, and then finishing it off with some fun details like the spikes and the pyramid studs just to give it some edge. So let's dive right into this project. Before I cut my pieces, I'm making 2 adjustments and lengthening both the front and the back strap. That way I can connect them together and make a complete armhole. Okay, so it is day 2. Yesterday, I just did all the prep just to get everything cut out and ready to sew. So now that I have all the pieces prepped, I'm going to start to put them together, and because this is a historical pattern, it is a lot more complex. I just read through the instructions just to kind of get a feel for what the process is going to look like, but I'm going to be really heavily relying on the instructions as I go through this. So it's a lot of markings. That's the other thing that I'm kind of concerned about, is it's a lot of markings that have to be transferred from the pattern piece to the actual fabric for me to sew. There's a million channels. It's not like a regular corset where it's just boning channels on the seams. It's all over and in a bunch of different directions. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Let's just see how this goes. Before I can transfer over all the markings from the pattern to the actual garment, I need to put together the front and the back panels. Now that the front and back panels are ready, I can start transferring over all my lines from the pattern pieces directly onto the garment. And I'd like to be able to use this pattern again in the future, so my solution to not completely destroy it was to do little dots along each line, and then now I'm using a ruler to connect all of my dots. I now have the front and the back stitched, and I have all the lines drawn to make the casings. You can see all the lines that are drawn there. So I have the lining and the outside pinned together. So now I'm going to just sew, easier said than done. I'm going to stitch each one of these lines, and this creates the channels for the boning. So, I'm probably going to end up regretting this, but the way that I decided to do it is I'm doing the velvet side down. So I'm going to do a red bobbin so you don't see the thread, but I wanted to have the lining up because the black is, well, first of all, satin is also easier to mark on than the red. Wanted to put it on the inside. That does mean the velvet will be down, which I don't know if it's going to help me or hurt me. With the feed dog actually moving the fabric, it probably would be better if the velvet was up, but this is what we're doing. So I'm just gonna take this really slow because I'm really nervous that the fabric is gonna wanna shift around as I'm sewing. I just did something similar to this and it was okay. So hopefully this won't be terrible, but let's just see. I don't know. We're gonna see how it goes. To sew each casing line, I'm putting a hand on either side and putting a little bit of pressure so that both of the layers are very taut against each other. And I'm sewing pretty slowly because I don't want to make the fabric move around too much underneath. Now that the casings are made, I can put in the boning, and I'm using a 1/4 inch Ridgeline boning, and because it is plastic, all I have to do is cut it with some heavy duty scissors. Okay, so after what was an absolutely absurd amount of very frustrating sewing, I now have all of the boning channels sewn and all the boning inserted on this thing, and it looks like an absolute mess. I'm going to be very honest about that. I am very much in the headspace of trust the process right now because it is looking pretty rough. Just like I thought was going to happen, the feed dog didn't really care for having the velvet down, and I think that the stitching's just not quite as smooth as I would like it to be. I also just think that velvet was probably a poor choice to use with this pattern, but you live and you learn, and this is the fabric that I wanted to use for this. I'm just trusting the process, and I think it's going to turn out fine. It's just, I never want to make this kind of pattern again. It's a lot, and it's just so unbelievably difficult to get the lines, like, or not even the lines. The lines are fine because I sketched everything out ahead of time, which you cannot do this without drawing them out first. Like, there's just no way. So that was like such a helpful thing that I did before that, was to draw draw lines for myself to follow. It's just really hard to get the fabric to be like the lining and the outside fabric to be completely flat together. That was the issue I was running into, is just like keeping the layers flat and flush to each other. I'm hoping that once this is like actually stringed up and like pulled really tight, that it won't matter as much because the fabric will all be pulled really taut and smooth. Fingers crossed. I don't actually know if that's going to happen, but I'm just glad that's done. I reached my peak frustration level a couple of times on that and had to just walk away, but it's finished now. So hopefully the rest of this is going to be smooth sailing. Got a lot to do, but we're going to get it done. Because I just cannot look at the corset anymore right now, I'm going to work on the skirt for a little while, and I'm using a pattern that I've used many times before, and this is just going to be a very simple mini pencil skirt. Now I need to make my sleeve pattern, and for this particular outfit, I want to make a leg of mutton sleeve. So I'm starting with a basic sleeve pattern, and then first I'm going to mark how far down I want the little poof at the top of the sleeve to start. Once I have that marked, then I can draw 2 diagonal lines that connect up with the center point of the sleeve. And once I have those lines drawn, I'm going to cut them, but I don't want to completely disconnect the paper. I just want to be able to manipulate it. Now that I've made my cuts, I'm going to take that piece and lay it down onto another new piece of paper, and this is what is called the slash and spread method. I'm spreading out the top of the sleeve as much as I possibly can, and then using my tailoring curve to round out any edges and to create the new top of the sleeve. This pattern calls for quite a bit of bias tape, so I am sketching out many pieces here using my yardstick as a guide for how wide I want it to be, and then I'm cutting them out with my shears. After cutting out my bias tape, I started applying it to the neckline of the stays, but unfortunately it did go south pretty quickly. Shifting like crazy, dude. Like so much. Okay, so it's the next day. I started putting on the bias tape to the neckline of the corset, or excuse me, stays, but I gave up pretty quickly because I made some mistakes that I want to kind of explain. So hopefully if you try this or something like it, that you don't make the same mistake I did. But basically, I first and foremost didn't cut this bias tape nearly wide enough. So this is like 1.25 inches wide. I needed to do at least like 2 to maybe even 2.5 inches wide on the bias tape, because when you fold it up, you lose so much of it. So because I made it so narrow, I had started to press it into like the actual bias tape shape where you like fold 2 sides of it down, but it was so narrow that I was like, this is not gonna work. So I have opted to instead just take this tape and just sew it straight on without it being folded at all, and then fold it over and then hand sew it on the inside. So that's not ideal. Honestly, I'm just being lazy. I should recut the bias tape. I'm not going to do that. I don't really have time to do that, and I already made so much of this bias tape that I'm just gonna move forward. I'm gonna continue to sew this on. Another problem I'm running into that's making this extremely frustrating is that this satin and this velvet just really don't agree with each other. When the presser foot goes over it, it wants to move because the fibers of the velvet are moving, and it makes the satin shift all around. So it's like I can't even keep it on straight to sew it straight. So it's just gonna be really painful and terrible to sew. But this is what we have to do. So I'm gonna just keep sewing this on. I had pinned it on, but I'm probably just gonna take all the pins out and just kind of free sew it. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the most frustrating sewing projects I've done in a really long time, and I will be really glad when it's over.
Yeah.
And after battling with that neckline, I'm certainly not ready to move on to the tabs of these stays, so I'm gonna put in the sleeves instead. And now that I can't put it off any longer, I am adding the bias tape to the tabs by doing the same method I did with the neckline, going really, really slow and just trying to keep the fabric as still as I possibly can. Okay, I feel like I haven't checked in on this in forever because I'm simultaneously working on my outfit as well as the outfit for Ryan for the after show. So I'm just like working on this when I get a chance to. So all of the bias tape is sewn on to the neckline and onto the bottom little pieces. And let me tell you, this really tried me. This really tried me, and I am reaching a point in this project where I just really need it to be over with, but we're down to that last 10% of stuff, and I don't want to give up. I want to see it through to the end, so I'm trying to just like lock in, but I'm so over this project. So I'm going to go ahead and do the eyelets on the back so I can actually lace it up. And I need to actually try it on because I haven't even gotten a chance to try this on yet because the back is open. And then that will kind of help me to determine what I'm going to do with the spikes. And I have like some little pyramid studs I'm going to put on the skirt. So let's do that first so I can try it on. And then we'll see what we want to do with the fun little bits and bobs. To put the grommets into the back, I am lining up both sides and marking where I want the grommets to go on either side with a ruler. Okay, I know the last time I checked in with y'all, I was putting on the grommets for this, but I ran out of storage on my camera and I needed that grommet piece to just be done, and so I just did it. So sorry. This is the grommets on the back. This is not fully all put together, but just wanted to try it on, see how it's fitting. And I think I've made a little bit of a mistake here because I thought that this was going to be like other corsets I've made where it like actually covers my boobs. And I think that this is meant to be like a layering thing and you're supposed to put something on underneath it. So my boobs are just like out. This is meant to be like an interpretation of of the look that Lady Gaga wears, that big red velvet coat. There is a lace trim that is used for the collar and the cuffs. And I have some of that because again, I've already recreated that look for Ryan. So I have some leftover things from her project that I can use for this one. So I have some of that white lace left, and I was thinking that I could make a little something right here just to hold the girls in a little bit better because they are everywhere. So let's start with that because I can't even show you any of this stuff without my boobs being covered. Okay, so before I sew all this in, I wanted to show y'all where I'm at. So I made this little lace piece that is the fabric folded over basically 4 times. Well, it's folded twice. It's folded and then I basted it and then I folded it again. So it's basically 4 layers of this because it's very thin. So I didn't want it to be like completely see-through. I might still have to do a pasty, but at least like my nipples aren't out. I don't know if I can say nipples on YouTube, but whatever. So yeah, that's going to be the solution for that. It's a little piratey, but I'm just... Oh, and also I did this little cuff situation. I'm on the fence about it, but I do think that it kind of... It's hard to see it all together, but I do think it kind of pulls the lace from the top together with it, because I think without it, it's just not going to make a lot of sense. But I also just can't quite figure out what to do with this sleeve, to be honest. So it's also hot as hell in Texas. It's supposed to be like 80 degrees this weekend, and this is long sleeve. So we'll see. I'm still kind of, the jury's sort of out on this, but I wanted to see what it would look like. I think that's going to work just fine. I'll go ahead and sew that in, but wanted to show y'all what I came up with before we make it permanent. And as a finishing touch on the skirt, I am adding 2 different sizes of pyramid studs. So for the first one, I've went ahead and marked about 1.5 inches between each one all the way around the skirt. And I'm using a little awl to poke a hole in the fabric before I put it through. And once both prongs are through the fabric, I'm using a little pair of jewelry pliers to bend the prongs. And once all the larger ones were already on the skirt, I went through and then added the little one between each of the larger ones. As a last minute detail, I'm making a leather choker, so once I have both of my leather pieces cut out, I'm using a very strong double stick tape to connect them together, and I'm adding a little piece of ribbon on either side so I can tie it around my neck. After I created all the holes for the spikes, I can then put in the screw and then screw on the spike and use my screwdriver to make it super tight. Okay, it is currently 1:30 in the morning after the concert, and I look like I have been dragged to hell and back, but I wanted to check in on this outfit before I took it off because I have a few things I want to say about it. I think that I was just really losing my patience with this, and so all I can see is the imperfections in it. But from far away, I think, you know, the point of what I was trying to make has come across. I will say, I did say that I looked piratey, and I met up with a friend after the concert was over. He said I looked like a pirate, which I was like, I knew I looked like a pirate. I don't want to call this project a complete failure because y'all are going to see it and probably be like, what are you even talking about? But it just really is just not up to the quality of things that I like to make. But I will say, not to make excuses, but I do have a pretty good excuse. I had the opportunity to take on the job for the photo opportunity before the concert, which I'm super grateful for that opportunity. And of course, that was a bigger priority than something that I was going to wear for myself. So this kind of just got put on the back burner, which I think made it more difficult to finish it because I was just like burnt out on other Mayhem stuff. And then this was just turning into kind of an afterthought. One thing that, you know, I already kind of touched on this, but it's like an even bigger mistake than I even realized now that I've like worn it. The neckline is just way too low. And even with the little extender, like I should have extended it up probably another 2 or 3 inches. Lesson learned there. You know, I showed y'all the footage of me making a skirt for this, and I had used that pattern before to make several skirts in the past and they'd fit just fine. I don't know what happened with this go around. I think that I was eyeballing the seam allowance and I probably should have just like officially measured because the skirt was really tight and like I could get it on, but when I was like trying to dress myself, one of the side seams popped and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna wear this skirt because and then like one of the studs fell off, which like, I was just like, okay, that's an omen that I will do something else with the studs that are on there because there's nothing wrong with them. I can take them off, put them on something else. So that was just kind of a fail. And so I was like, well, shoot, what am I gonna do? And so this is a dress and I just put this over the top. That honestly was an amazing solution. I'm very happy with that. And I was much more comfortable. So kind of a happy accident. Lots of lessons learned, which is always the point of doing a new project. So I can't really complain too much. Let me know what y'all think about this. If you have experience with stay patterns, because that's what this is, it's not a corset. Love to know if you have tips and tricks about like historical style of sewing. Very interested in learning more about that. So if that's your experience, please drop a comment below. Let's chat about it. So let me know what y'all think. If you have questions, happy to answer them, and I will see y'all on the next one. Bye.